Nobody wants to have to deal with a mass casualty combat search and rescue where there's potentially no survivors. It's one of those sites that you don't ever want to see, and once you see it, you'll never forget it.
You know there's Taliban or someone around. Your life is on the line, along with everyone else.
We're going to do everything we can to save whoever's out there. It was our job. It was our mission. Rangers are probably one of the best kept secrets in the Army. They can do special missions in support of national directives that no other unit can do.
Rangers are one of the best, if not the best. And I'm going to say they are the best because I was a Ranger.
Ranger Creed is what you live by in Ranger Regiment. That's what you follow. You live the entire creed. Every word in there is important.
The Ranger Creed basically sets the standards for Rangers. And you know, when you're told to do something, you do it right and do it to the best of your ability. We're gonna push as much as we can, as far as we can. Even if it's hard, we never quit.
When you want something hard enough, you prepare yourself physically and mentally in order to meet that challenge and meet that goal in life. I knew from an early age I was always gonna be in the Army. My great uncles, they were in the Army. My dad was a retired Marine, but I didn't know anything about Rangers. I knew people jumped out of airplanes. You know, I knew of the infantry. Once I found out about Rangers, that was everything to me. That was my ultimate goal. Once I made, you know, a Ranger Company First Sergeant, there was only 12 of those in the Army at the time. And, you know, I was one of 12. That was one of the proudest moments of my life, still is.
He is the epitome of what you expect a company first sergeant to be. There's a saying when it comes to leadership in the Army, you can be as hard as you want, as long as it's fair. Brian was one of those guys, he could tear you up one side and down the other, and you know, it's like water off a duck's back. 10 minutes later, he'll ask you if you want to go eat lunch or go to breakfast.
What makes him a great leader is his ability to uphold the Ranger standards and to show young guys that, hey, you know, this is how you're supposed to lead, this is how you're supposed to act.
My Ranger Company, well, it's Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. I was the senior non-commissioned officer for that entire element. I was operating out of Bath, which is Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan.
For us, you know, June 28th started like any other day. We woke up, went out and did PT, and we got the call to turn around and come back as fast as we could. We kind of knew that something bad had happened, but I don't think any of us knew exactly what because they didn't want to broadcast it across the radio.
SEAL team was on reconnaissance missions in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan. They were compromised by enemy personnel. Probably was Taliban. They were being chased down and called for reinforcements.
So we start off with a U.S. military helicopter crash in Afghanistan. Military officials say about 16 U.S. troops were on board. There is no word on the fate of that crew.
Information that was given to me was, hey, there's a helicopter that was shot down, so y'all guys be ready. And finally, the word came down and said, hey, you guys are gonna go to the crash site and try to recover anything that's there.
We were really concerned about pillaging and pilfering by the enemy, and the concern for us was, you know, we want everyone accounted for. We
were tasked to go in and recover the bodies and recover any survivors and eliminate any threat scenario. Because if they do get captured, that is one of our missions, to go recover individuals who, you know, who have been captured. So we wanted to get there as quickly as possible.
We were hoping that there was, you know, some living there, but we didn't know at the time.
We started an initial movement that day, within a few hours of, you know, the bird being shot down.
We were told it shouldn't take much time to recover everything and to pack light because we were putting a lot of people on a helicopter.
You know, there's a lot that plays into how many people you can put on a helicopter at certain times of the year, and at certain altitudes, the aircraft can only carry so much weight. I was serving as a rifle squad leader at the time, and we'd only take so many guys, so we had to pick the best guys that we had in every squad to get the aircraft to the elevation where we needed to get them.
We didn't pack for more than one day. We brought, a basic combat load, and that was pretty much it. No food or any extra water or anything like that.
We get everything set, we get everybody on the same page, and then we load the helicopters and we take off and we fly to Jalalabad. When we got to Jalalabad, there's a mountain rainstorm that's pushing through the area where the crash was.
It's too foggy for a task force to fly in that night. Honestly, I have the feeling that they were a little nervous. You know, they just lost one bird, and they were a little nervous about losing another one. We turned around, went back to Jalalabad, and waited to the next period of darkness.
We stayed the night there, and they had some type of surveillance trying to figure out what was going on. All I know is that, at the time that there were still fires on the crash site, and they can't tell if anyone's alive.
At that point in time, we have up to 20 Americans that are dead or missing, and we don't know where they are.
They were Americans, and they were a fighting force that were out there serving their country. And we're gonna go get them. America expects the Ranger Regiment to do that. And it's instilled in you, it's driven into you, fight on to the Ranger objective and complete the mission. We're gonna do everything we can to recover the bodies or save whoever's out there.
We begin with a developing story out of Afghanistan. A U.S. military helicopter carrying troops to the front lines has crashed in a rugged mountain area along the border with Pakistan.
U.S. military search and rescue forces are making their way there, looking for any survivors from the crash.
We load up 2 platoons of Rangers, 1 Navy element, and I had some Air Force PJs with me. It's a pararescue unit in the Air Force.
Nobody wants to have to deal with a mass casualty combat search and rescue where, you're going into a situation where there's potentially no survivors. But certain people are called to do certain things, and that's what we do.
Knowing the situation of what happened to the first helicopter, I was terrified. But as a Ranger, you can't be. When you're in the helicopter, you shut that fear and you put that fear away and be the Ranger that you're supposed to be and fight on to the objective, no matter what. It goes back to, the foundations that you're brought up on. Growing up, I watched a movie and seen what a Ranger was and kind of thing. And I was like, oh, I want to be one of those guys. Those guys are pretty cool. The movie that I saw, and everybody's going to laugh about this, was Con Air. The one little scene where he's fighting those dudes and everything. I was like, oh, I want to try that out. Maybe that's something, I can do. My mom was always firm on education, and my dad was all about working hard. I was the first person in my family to graduate high school, so that was a big accomplishment. And when I joined the military, they were pretty excited about that. Once I finished basic training, I went to airborne school, and the first time I was ever in an airplane, I jumped out of it. But airborne school was pretty easy for me. RIP, on the other hand, which is a Ranger Indoctrination process, RIP was challenging. RIP is what really got me to realize what Rangers were about. I learned a lot about myself, I learned how far I can actually push myself mentally and physically. You don't quit.
Mario was quite the epitome of what we think a Ranger should look like. He was a big barrel-chested guy with a little skinny waist, and he could pack around a machine gun and 80 pounds of gear. Even to this day, if I had to be in a gunfight, I'd want Mario to stand next to me on my left or on my right.
Never shall I fail my comrades. It's the Ranger creed.
Our mission was we were gonna fast rope in the side of mountain range and start walking the rest of the way in.
The primary method that we always choose to use to get in somewhere is to land the helicopter and run off the back. With this situation, that wasn't an option based on the tree height, so we ended up doing a fast rope. It's about a 4-inch diameter rope that's attached to the back of the helicopter. You'll exit the aircraft and then you'll do a spin out to clear your equipment, your rifle, from getting caught up on the ramp of the helicopter. Anything under 40 feet you can usually do with a light-skinned glove, but you start pushing past 40 feet, it gets hot real quick. If you have big machine guns, 27 pounds extra weight, plus the ammunition that goes with that, it starts to add up quick and the friction heats up quick and you start carrying a lot of speed to the bottom.
They gave us like the full length of the rope, which was between 60 and 90 feet. I fast roped in. I burnt, I got blisters on my 2 fingers, on my shooting finger, and a lot of other people were just dropping off around 10 feet because the rope was so long and they were starting to burn their hands.
Going in, if someone falls off the rope and breaks his arm. So immediately getting on the ground, I already have casualties that need to get evac'd. You're not getting evac'd. You're just gonna have to suck it up.
I want to say we got inserted somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 feet, and the crash was just shy of 10,000. If you kind of looked up, you could see the crash was still hot under night vision. You could see it glowing.
I was the point man, so I'm the first guy leading to the crash site. I got us onto the trail that we were supposed to walk on. So we followed that along the side of the mountain. And when I say on the side of the mountain, literally you have a small little trail and then it's just a drop off.
Pretty steep terrain, it's rugged terrain, either from 9,000 to 10,000 feet above sea level.
It's not an easy walk by any means. It's a very cumbersome, laborious walk, trying to find a trail and stay on a trail and move with a sense of purpose the fastest that we can.
I'm on the alert for any type of Taliban or Al-Qaeda or whoever shot down the helicopter. We're going in very hostile territory. Anything can happen out there.
We walked all night long, and the mountains were just kicking a lot of dudes' butts. I mean, we were doing fine, but some of the other guys that were with us, they were not doing as good.
As we kept walking, it just never seemed like it got closer. It's like a mirage. We were climbing and working as hard as we could, and we were, we're getting tired, but we're trying to go as fast as we can to get where we want to go. Growing up as a kid in Kansas, you run around with your friends playing Army in the woods, and I just kind of never grew out of it. To me, it was just a typical childhood. I, went camping and hunting and fishing with my brother and my sister and my dad, and So joining the Army was not a big thing for me. It just always was kind of one of the things that I felt that I needed to do. Both my grandparents served in World War II. My grandfather always said I should have joined the Navy and get 3 hot meals a day and a hot bed to sleep in, and well, I kind of went the opposite for that. My brother decided he was gonna sign papers, and I just went with it. It's a twin thing, I guess. I have an identical twin brother. We did basic training, airborne school, and Ranger indoctrination program together. The day we donned black berets at the Ranger Memorial at Fort Benning, that's always the standout moment, because it's the day you get to be part of something more than just being in the Army. And then once I got there, it was the challenge to continue to meet the standards and stay there and excel at what I do, because every day is a new day, and every day there's something else to prove to yourself. That night, walking up the mountain, we were all tired, we were worn out, but it's like anything else in life. Even if it's just a horrible experience, it's gonna end sometime. It's can you make it to when it ends?
We finally get to the crash site. The sun was just about coming up. I could see fire still going on. And the crash site is literally on the side of a steep ledge. We secure the area and we start pulling a perimeter. We hoped that when we came in, we would find live crew members, but we didn't. There was nothing left of the helicopter. And this is a Chinook. It's a big helicopter. And the only thing that resembled a helicopter was some rotor blades. There was nothing left.
It's one of those sights that you don't ever want to see, and once you see it, if you ever have to see it, you'll never forget it.
A lot of the bodies were really mangled. There was bodies that weren't even bodies. There were just ashes. As a young guy, I was like, holy smokes. I didn't think that was possible. How does a body just get burnt up like that? I did meet the gunner of that flight a couple days before. And the reason why I remember this guy is because he had FU written on his gloves. And his weapon on that Chinook was a minigun. And I do remember flying several times on that helicopter, because he was one of the guys that would let us shoot the minigun while they were, test firing it when we'd take off and stuff.
The flight medic on that bird was a former Ranger medic from 3rd Ranger Battalion when I was there. His name was Marcus Morales. I just talked to him a few days prior. He was gonna go home within a few days and see his brand new baby girl. He never made it home. We're professionals. I mean, we all join the military knowing that this can happen to us. Yeah, it can happen to any of us. You might die, or your friends might die. We know it's going to happen. Do you ever get used to it? No. I've lost kids that were 19 years old. It hurts right there when it's happening, and then it turns into anger. And that's the way you got to do it. You got to, it bothers you for a little while, and then you want to get the guys who did it.
A grim drama has been unfolding at 10,000 feet in the mountains of Afghanistan. We can't report all the facts yet because American lives are still at stake. This is shaping up as the worst loss suffered by Special Operations Forces since the War on Terror began.
At the crash site, we're starting to look at this whole entire picture of the landscape of what's going on. You could just see that this whole ridge was made for fighting on. There was little fighting positions made out of rocks, little observation posts. They were ready for us. It's no wonder that something happened like that. But you can't see it from the sky. You're not gonna be able to see it with drones or anything like that. This is something you're gonna have to see on the ground.
Our platoon pulled security and covered the high ground. We got tasked with kind of a little roving patrol in our general vicinity.
We set up that as our area of operation right there, our patrol base, if you will, of where we're going to operate out of in order to recover the bodies and send out teams to find the personnel who were responsible for shooting out of the helicopter. Anytime a team is released from our perimeter, I control who goes in and out and where they're going and coordinating all that. So I had to maintain track of all personnel.
So my platoon was on security. The second platoon was on body recovery. Throughout the day, we had body recoveries and they couldn't find a couple of them.
It's hot, there's no shade, it's, pushing into the 100 degrees, and the hardest part was just bringing them from the crash site back to the top. Guys would carry them for as far as they could, and then the next set would take over and carry them the rest of the way.
I think it was late in the day when they finally recovered all 16. And we built a helicopter landing zone for the helicopter to come in and get the bodies.
We started blowing trees and tree stumps out of the way, and about a few hours after blowing stuff up, we had enough room to put a helicopter in and load the remains.
The whole time intel's being gathered about one person possibly being captured.
My blocking position was right next to the command center, and I could overhear everything going on. They're hearing radio chatter about a live American.
One of the radios that initial SEAL team had with them should have been kept on an individual. So once it started moving, we thought that there was a survivor.
At that point, we got tasked with going down the mountain and kind of figuring out what that was. I was relieved. I didn't want to sit there on that crash site. It's hollowed ground, if you will. It's just kind of one of those things where if I'm not there, I don't have to think about what just happened there. I have a new tasking and I have a new purpose for what I'm doing and why I'm out here. I know for me, I said a silent prayer for, everybody that was recovered and for those that were still missing. You keep reminding yourself that there's still a job to be done. We'll pay our respects to them when this is over and everybody's back, everyone's accounted for, and everyone is safe.
We had to hurry up and go. Needed to be a quick, small team.
As we're walking downhill, another mountain storm had pushed in. It's dumping on us all night. It's just raining, so it's cold, it's wet, it's muddy. We're walking down like a 60-degree incline, and
the rain was so bad that you really couldn't see anything that was going on. It was walking and falling. You fell a lot, and you got up, you were muddy, you were wet.
The rain just didn't seem to let up. Everybody's starting to slip and slide down the mountain, and so it's like, hey, we need to stop. So we just kind of hunkered down underneath the pine trees that were up there.
We're sitting there trying to stay warm, and trying to stay quiet too, because all around us we started seeing a bunch of fires. The only thing we know that's up there is Taliban. And, you know, we have 2 or 3 guys pull security while the rest, you know, try to take a nap. You don't get much sleep, but the body will keep going and going and going. It's the mind that breaks it down. A lot of it is mental. How can you handle what you're going through, and are you going to be able to push yourself through?
We started receiving intel of locations of, you know, that equipment that was being moved. We started tracking the radio. You know, we knew where it was going. We pushed out one platoon, going down to the village where the equipment had sent off a signal.
Climbing down the mountain, we just walked forever, and we were out of supplies in a way. We have no water, we have no food, nobody brought any food.
We only had the ability to carry, you know, like a day's ration. So we called for a resupply drop on our location.
When we got a resupply, you see these big, huge pallets flying in. You know, they're in a big, huge green parachute. And they dropped it in the only tree in this clear area. Nick starts climbing up the tree to cut all our our stuff out, and I climb up the tree to get more stuff out.
Everybody was kind of making fun of me because I look like somebody from an old 20s pirate movie with my knife in my mouth climbing this tree about 8-9 feet up. And, you know, I've got probably an 800 or 900 pound pallet over my head in this tree, and I'm up there hacking it apart with a knife, pulling stuff out and throwing it down.
Both me and Nick get up there and we're like, hey, man, if there's a sniper here, we're done. Now looking back, it's funny, but at the time, it just made me so mad.
We get our resupply, and we continue to walk, you know, for the rest of the morning down towards the village where we're getting this radio signal from.
The information that's being passed down was that there's an American being hidden, so we start searching the buildings.
Get back, get down!
We assumed that the village was like any other village, and we just started clearing it as an unknown threat, so you know, we started kicking in doors. We're asking people where the Americans are, and of course they're speaking, you know, Pashto, and we're speaking English, and it doesn't translate, so it's, you know, pointing to an American flag patch on your shoulder, and, you know, where are the Americans?
We start hearing commotion going on down the mountain, and at this point is when we start seeing a bunch of men pushing another guy, and he's taller than everybody else. When I get down there, I see that it's an American that's dressed up with the Afghan hat and Afghan dress on and everything. They do, you know, the ordinary, hey, what's your name? And the security questions. And they find out that it's one of the SEALs that was missing.
There's a radio transmission saying, hey, we've got control of, you know, Marcus Luttrell.
My name is Marcus Luttrell. I'm 39 years old, and I'm from Texas. I didn't kid myself. I didn't tell myself that I was gonna make it out of there. But I did tell myself that my boys were coming to get me. If I could hold out, it'd be okay. That's what I did. Just waited, no matter how long it took. Now, I also put in the back of my head that I was an expendable asset. I'm a Navy SEAL. I'll get paid to take risks and die if necessary. That's one of the reasons you join up for the job, because of that line right there. That's how sexy and cool it is. But then when it's really happening, you're like, wait a minute. But make no mistake, if we're ever in trouble, then you call the Rangers and they'll come get our asses out. Because they'll bring everything. I mean, sure, I'm sure there's a lot to it. They love the satisfaction of saying they got to come rescue our asses all the time. That's got to be part of it. Why wouldn't it be?
I do recall Marcus saying that he would never live down being rescued by Army Rangers. At least he could make light of the situation that he was in.
I just remember sitting against that wall. I mean, and I was beat up too, but I just remember looking at them and just got to think, like, this guy doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything about me. But he just went through hell to come get me. Man, there's probably a chance he wouldn't like me if he knew me. It doesn't matter. Just sitting back and looking and go, man, these guys got a phone call saying that I was jammed up. And there's a pretty good chance they weren't gonna make it out of there if they came to get me. And they were like, all right, let's go get him.
I didn't know his name, I just knew he was a SEAL, and that's part of the reason why we were out there. I didn't know who it was, and it didn't really matter at that point. There's an American survivor.
And that lasted for about a minute. That whole, hey, because we're still in the crap. And they picked me up, carried me into this barn, and they started doctoring me up. I've been shot, broke my back, pelvis was fractured, my shoulder had been busted up, my face was busted up real bad. I bit my tongue in half, and I broke my nose, and then I had head injuries. I'd knocked myself out multiple times.
We asked Marcus, where are the bad guys? He says, they're all around us. They're everywhere around us.
I go, how many guys you got? And he kind of chuckled at me a little bit. And I was like, how many you got? You got a lot?
He goes, up in the top of this mountain is where we got engaged. There's this clear site. And that's where we were sleeping the night before with all the fires around, where the resupply landed in the one tree. So me and Nick look at each other in a way, and we're like, that could have been a very crazy morning in a way if they really wanted to come out and play.
And then about an hour later, it was game on. Just started laying lead.
Air support came in and destroyed the entire mountaintop with all kinds of artillery. It's one of those times I was like, this is gonna be the best, 4th of July ever, because it was pretty close. The Taliban were running down and they just lit them up. And they were running down with lights, and then no more lights after that.
Rangers and the Air Force coordinated, and the enemy was destroyed.
In Afghanistan, there are new developments in the search for the 4 U.S. Navy SEALs missing in the rugged mountains near Pakistan since early last week.
When one of the SEALs was rescued on Saturday, he told rescuers things did not look good for other team members.
There's a total of 4 on the team. And so, the next question is just, hey, where is everybody else?
And they were like, where's the rest of your team? I was like, they're dead, man. And then we started passing intel. We started talking about the engagement, and then I asked them their route of insertion. And they're like, we came in this way, we didn't see anything. I was like, that's the way we came in. We didn't see anything either, until they were on top of us. The Taliban had kind of had us surrounded in the beginning. Once we got channelized into that draw, they were all over us, they could see us. We're really good at our skill set and disappearing and moving throughout the terrain and kind of losing the trail of whoever's following us. But once they get you in an open area and they have you surrounded on multiple sides, it's difficult to apply that skill set. But I'm not sad at the fact of how they died. They died in combat next to their brothers, pile of brass. That's how we die.
Now we have a solid answer of, okay, there's only 1 survivor, so we're looking for 3 more, KIAs. At least we had an answer to the fate of that reconnaissance team.
At this point, Brian starts assigning the rest of the guys that were back at the crash site to start doing body recovery, because we know they're dead, but we don't know where they're at. And we never leave a fallen comrade behind. We're going like halfway up the mountain, and the other squads are coming halfway down the mountain, and we're kind of meeting in the middle, searching for bodies.
One of our guys slipped into a little wash and had actually stumbled on the first two remains that we found.
It was a bad way the bodies were positioned and were shot up. I mean, they weren't abused or anything like that. They were fully clothed. Their equipment was gone, and that's one big difference between Taliban and Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda would have mutilated the bodies, so we knew it probably was Taliban.
We have Marcus, and then we have two. Now we're looking for the needle in the haystack as to, where's the fourth and final member of this team. For the next 10 days, we continued to search. At this point, elements of the Marines have started to make their way up to assist and to kind of enlarge the American presence up there.
We're filthy, dirty. Pants are completely torn open from falling, and nobody was shaving or anything, and we stunk so bad. The prickly heat kicked in.
What's going on, guys?
The Marines start walking by, and they're like, who are these, guys?
We were all tired. We were worn out. We were, beat up.
We weren't leaving there until we found the third body, but a higher power said, hey, you gotta go.
If they had kept telling us to stay, we would have stayed. I would say within 8 hours of us getting relieved, they had found the final missing American.
Rangers did what they were asked to do. They completed the mission. We thought we were going in for 8 hours. We stayed there for 12 days. It was our job. It was our mission. Bodies were recovered, equipment was destroyed, and a captured U.S. service member was rescued.
The hard walks and the rain and the no food and stuff, it was worth it. We saved a life. There's one American that can say that, hey, I was rescued by a great group of guys, and I can thank every day that I live because of them.
We saved someone. That is an accomplishment. And it wasn't me, it was the men of Charlie Company, 2nd Ranger Battalion.
It was probably one of the most difficult, mentally and physically challenging missions that I had to deal with. The physical part is one of those things where twisted ankles and scrapes and bruises, they heal and they go away, but things in your memory are always there. It's kind of the unseen scars that, everybody carries that was there. And, I know Marcus carries his own set of scars, and we all carry our set of scars from that. When you have to see things like that, it changes a person.
One of the unique things about this particular operation is it showed the ability of our military to come together as one fighting unit and get something done. When all them guys died, it was, hey, let's go. And it worked like a surgeon's scalpel, man, just to get me out of there and get the boys back home. I probably couldn't walk outside right now and somebody wouldn't help me change my tire. These guys are in the middle of Afghanistan, and they're just don't know me from Adam, and they walk through straight through the gates of hell, shake hands with the devil to come get me, because that's where I was at. I was in hell. So they did it.
Our creed ends with, readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on to the Ranger objective and complete the mission, though I be the lone survivor.
Ranger Regiment makes you a better man. And it makes you the best warrior there is, flat out. And I'll go to my grave believing that. You can sleep safely knowing that there's people like that that are going to defend your country. I'm proud of everything my Rangers did.
The way we honor their memory is keep getting back at it every day. And the guys who come after me do the same thing. That's how they respect my generation. I'll never stop.